Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another night of brilliant conversation
Yeah.
and education. We are going to learn tonight about a particular individual who's done some great work with young
Mm,
people, and we're looking forward to this, to be honest.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We hope you've had a great weekend so far. The weekend wasn't too bad.
Mm.
If you were not, if you haven't seen already, we were promoting the launch of Jerk Spice,
Mhm.
who've opened up their second shop in Chingford. So if you're in that area, you do well to pop down there if you need any of your beauty supplies or
Yes.
men's supplies. Okay, so hope
So
you
that's
are.
wait a minute. That is
Oh yes,
68 Old
60.
Street with Chingford Mount.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it's not too far away. Chingford Mount, and it's a new shop next door to each other. So the gentleman has opened a new shop next door,
yeah,
and that's the hair and beauty
yeah,
products. So
yeah. All right. So without further ado, as if you haven't seen already, we have been advertising as best we can, but we do have a wonderful gentleman on who is the creator and founder
yep,
of
you.
Ultra Education. Oh my word, my brain is switched off.
We
Oh,
went down on the meltdown there.
exactly.
Ultra Education, and that is Mr. Julian Hall, the creator, yeah, the creator, and we would like to speak to him tonight to talk about the business that he's done, and it's fabulous. So, without further ado,
Let's welcome
Julian Hall.
Julian Hall.
Hello, Julian. How are you, sir?
Good
I'm
evening, sir.
well. Good evening, guys. How are you? How are you both?
Not
We
too bad at
we are
all.
fine, but you can see how we just went uh uh but it's because we weren't too sure A for Ultra or U for Ultra. So I just said, But that is fabulous.
Yeah,
Welcome to Black Business Recommendation. And,
it's a pleasure.
what you are doing is so needed, necessary in our community that, words just fail me. So without further ado, Julian, can you introduce yourself and what you do and who are you?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Hugh, Lorraine, for having me on your show this evening. I really, really appreciate it. So, my name is Julian Hall. I'm the CEO and founder of a 6-year-old social enterprise called Ultra Education, and we teach entrepreneurship to kids from 7 to 18 years old. And we're really passionate about the way in which entrepreneurship can develop the skill set and mindset in young people and in children at an early age, which we believe can help set them up for life.
Oh,
That
brilliant.
is
That's
fabulous.
amazing.
So I'm gonna ask the first
One of,
question,
one of my
which is
hardest is.
which is old school children were told to keep quiet, stay in the background, and just grow. But you have taken things to a next level because now you're introducing us to our young people who are the future in business. How did you come about this
The enterprise,
business,
yeah.
this enterprise?
So I started my first business at the age of 18 in a one-bedroom flat in Stonebridge with some friends of mine. And it was, purely an accident. There wasn't anyone really encouraging us. It was the fact that we had a problem. We wanted to look cool in the latest gear, but we couldn't afford it. So my girlfriend at the time, she had studied at the London College of Fashion. So she designed the clothes and we made them. So it meant that we could have, have the latest fashion
Mm-hmm.
at a price that, well, it was rock bottom price. It was just the cost of the material, really, and our sweat. It was
Affordable.
affordable. But what we realized is that we'd solved a problem for other people too. Um,
Mm.
Everyone else wanted to look cool. Everyone else wanted custom clothing, and it was just part of the black culture at the time. To have stuff
Mm-hmm.
that was unique that other people didn't have. There were lots of performers and entertainers that we would dress in the time, and it became a real business. And it was the first experience that I had of making any money, but
Mm.
that was, as lots of entrepreneurs would describe, accidental. It wasn't something that I intended to do.
Yeah.
But I realized that having that early experience with entrepreneurship really set me up for life. And so I didn't want it to be an accident. I didn't want in, 2015 or 2021 for kids who have ideas to not have anyone to talk to about them.
Yeah.
Because as you know, culturally, it's a lot better now. But even in school, it's just learn your books and stick to the curriculum. Anything outside of that isn't really welcomed. In a lot of cases, young people who go to school and sell sweets and Lucozades, I mean, they're literally excluded from school.
Yeah.
So we all know at the same time that small business is the lifeblood of the UK economy. So something's wrong there. We should be encouraging children and young people to set up businesses, particularly in the Black community when we don't have much ownership of anything, and the Black pound leaves our communities real quick. We need to be able to build that generational wealth, that capacity, that autonomy to be able to control our own income, to create jobs, and for us to develop the kinds of businesses that we want to serve the communities. And ultimately, I think you need to start that conversation young. I think you need to develop those ideas really early, so that by the time kids are old enough and they really want to do something, that they've had some practice at it, that they're already good at it, and they'll have a better shot at having a successful business.
So with that being said, how do you transition from your 18-year-old young self to going into looking at supporting young people in developing their own business ideas? How did that come about?
It's a great question. And two main things happened. One was when I was, just running my own businesses prior to this education business, I would be asked to go and speak at schools and colleges and universities. And when I would speak to young people about business, I realized that the kind of questions they were asking me meant that no one was giving them that, the answers, giving them the information. And they were hanging on to every word that I said as if I was the only one having that conversation with them,
Yeah.
And it made me realize that I didn't have that person to talk to, and that there were probably, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young people around the country who didn't have anyone to talk to about business and entrepreneurship. And really, it started to make me think about legacy and, where did I want to go as a man? Where did I want to go as a business person, as an entrepreneur? Was it all about just making money? No, because we all know lots of people with lots of money who are sad and depressed. So you've got to have some purpose, you've got to have some meaning, and you can do that in lots of different ways. And probably the last trigger point for that, for me, was my daughter. So around that time, she was 7, 8 years old, well, 5, 6 years old. And we were having a kind of family gathering. She came out to the garden with her cousins who were, 6 or 7 of her cousins who were all a little bit older than her. And she stopped everyone and said, right, we've made stuff for you to buy. And if you don't have any money, we've made you credit cards too. And
Stop that.
And I remember
she should be running the business.
She gave out these little credit cards and stuff like that. And the reason she was doing that is because she used to have a little play area in my home office. So she would hear all the conversations I'd have. She'd see what I was doing. And she was obviously just absorbed it. And in a playful way, she just expressed, how she felt and, in her own childlike way. But what it made me realize was that if she could pick that up almost, just by being around it, that it could be taught. And, my wife was an expert in early years education. And, the whole Montessori approach is very practical. It's very hands-on. It's very child-centered and it empowers the student, much like entrepreneurship. So we came together and developed a curriculum, and then we started to roll it out.
So when did that actually start? I mean,
what year?
I'm gonna go back to your boss, your daughter, right? But before I go there, when did that actually start? Where you started to roll it out?
So the first kind of programs were rolled out in 2015.
Okay.
And
so actually, the very first workshop we ever ran was in a bookshop in Brixton on Station Road. A friend of mine owned the shop. He heard about what I was trying to do and said, "Why don't you come and run a workshop down at the shop?" So myself, my wife, my nephew went down there. We had about 15 kids. And I remember there was this 6-year-old called Max. And what I gave them an exercise, which was to go around the shop, inside and outside, and to give the owner some feedback, right? See if they could advise the owner. Yeah, so wow. I didn't tell the owner that was happening. At the end of it, after about 15 minutes, I said to the owner, right, you know, these kids have been going around your shop and they want to give you some advice. So he thought, yeah, whatever. So first up was Max. Max was 6. And he said to the owner, he said, those books behind you on the shelf, are they for kids? So my friend said, yeah, they're for kids. And Max said, but I can't reach them.
What, you see?
And so my friend grabbed his notepad. He started taking all these notes.
Yes, right? Got serious now.
He got serious now.
Well,
and then another kid said, those umbrellas, because my friend had these kind of like African-inspired umbrellas, and he had decorated the ceiling with them. So another kid said, those umbrellas, are they for sale? And the guy said, yeah, they're for sale. He said, and the kid goes, but there are no price tags on them. Guy starts writing notes. And the thing about it is, I remember when the kids saw that the bookshop owner was listening to them, you could see that they grew 10 feet tall.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Their confidence and their self-esteem grew. You could tell in their face they were beaming. And it was the first time they had probably ever been asked to contribute something of value to an adult, right? And give their opinion to something that they knew was important. They knew this guy was running a shop. They knew it was his business. They knew it was his livelihood. And they were able to add value. And, you know, they were primary school kids.
Wow. Wow. So now you're taking from them, you're seeing how serious it is. And you're now thinking, where do we go from here with this? So now you've started this process.
Yeah.
How long did it continue at that particular venue, or how long did it continue?
Yeah. So that was that. I think we might have had 4 or 5 sessions there. Then one of the parents who were there lived in Croydon and said, why don't you set up a workshop in Croydon? I said, do you know any venues? They said, we know Matthew's Yard. There's a nice art gallery there.
Right.
So we set up there. Being from Brent, when I had put up all of the pictures of the kids in Croydon, the Brent parents were like, well, what about us? And I said, well, you know, do you have a space? And they said, well, actually, yeah, there's a school who'll give you the space for free on a Saturday morning. So we started to run there. And then, you know, parents in North London and East London, well, what about us? So by the time 2017, 2018 rolled around, we were running about 7 or 8 different clubs during the week across London.
Oh, wow.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, what kind of time were they running?
They were either after school or weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So is that still the mantra, that is after school or weekend that you're still doing? Or have you got other times?
Yeah. So now, I mean, we are in the school day. So, you know, we had a program running in the school today. We've got a program running in the school this week. Another one on Saturday to about 60 kids next week. We're doing some stuff with 6th formers. So, you know, we do stuff all over now. We do stuff in the school day, after school, weekends, holidays. You know, my facilitators, they're knackered.
So so that started from your boss. Yeah? Your boss created this, right?
Yeah.
And is your boss still supporting you? What's your boss doing?
So she's won awards herself. She's been, you know, she's been in newspapers, she's been on TV. She actually, I was invited to speak at an event at Bloomberg, and it was for the launch of a tech initiative. And they asked me to bring some of my young entrepreneurs along. And so I brought her and about 4 others. And, you know, there was an audience of about 150 people. And, you know, she was the first up to speak. She was like 8 years old. And, you know, she told 150 adults what she wanted to do with her business. And, you know, and there were another 10-year-old and a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old. Yeah. And they were all just really confident. And the thing about it is, when people say that kids aren't good at speaking in front of an audience, or they're not confident about speaking, what it is, they're not confident about speaking with regards to something that they're not interested in or they're not passionate about. In general. So if you say to them, you've got to get up and talk about King Henry VIII, you've got to get up and talk about, politics or whatever, they have to train themselves to do that. But if you ask them to talk about something that they're passionate about, an idea that they've got, something that they've achieved, they will talk about it forever. And that's the thing that we've tapped into. We start by asking kids, young people, what are you passionate about? What are you in love with? What do you do without your parents telling you to do? And we then just expose the business model behind it. So whatever they're into, it could be gaming, fashion, music, writing, food, whatever it is, there is probably a business model behind it. There's probably a way that they can make money from it. And that's what we show them how to do.
Yeah.
That is fabulous. That is
amazing. I mean, in terms of how you said you started, Julian, I'm really interested because obviously you said that you started with parents in Croydon, and then everybody else started too. So what about them? Was that through word of mouth, or was that through you then saying, okay, there is a need, so we have to start marketing? Or was it just purely word of mouth?
Yeah, so I was saying to Hugh offline a little earlier on that I ran a digital agency in Shoreditch for 5 years. So I came to Ultra with a very strong digital marketing capability. In fact, my first intern, who's been working with me for, it could be up to 10 years now, he too was, helping us, and he has, very strong digital marketing capability. Yeah. So I knew how to market things. And the reason why it spread so quickly is for this one reason. I knew that when I presented the idea that kids can start businesses, that people would think it's either odd or not believable, or maybe you could get one or two here or there. So what I did was, each time we had a kid who launched a business, I would promote them on social media. When we were in the workshops and the kids were showing their logos and showing their mind maps and talking about their marketing and talking about their products, we would put it all across social media so that there was proof. It wasn't coming from Julian. You had kids saying this, you had parents saying this, you had teachers saying this. So that fueled the word of mouth, to answer your question. And then parents would tell other parents, kids would tell other kids, teachers would tell other teachers, and then it would come back to us and we'd be asked if we could do more.
Oh, that's amazing, honestly. So in terms of that, what do you provide the children, or what subjects do you do?
Julian, sorry, before we go into the subjects, let's talk about the process, because you spoke about the mind map. Those are things that adults who are in business, right, are not quite sure of. There are many who are, but there are many who don't. So let's talk about the process. Yeah. So a child comes to you and says, I've got an idea, or I'm interested in business. What happens from that point on?
Sure. So we've developed a pedagogy, which is, in educational speak, is an approach to teaching a subject, and that pedagogy is based on our logo, actually, and it's on our website. So if a child comes to us, we've got a stage process. So we start with passion, and we basically ask them, what are you passionate about? What do you love doing? Once we've uncovered that passion, we then go to research. So we go online and we look and see who else is doing something like that. Not that it means you can't do it, but it just gives you an idea of what's going on. Then we work out whether or not you're going to turn it into a product or a service. What does it look like? Let's develop a prototype. Then we go down to, profit and loss. How much is it going to cost? And, how much you're going to sell it for? And then the very last thing we do is sales and marketing. So, you've now worked out the passion, you've done some research, you've worked out whether or not it's going to be a product or service, you know how much it's going to cost, and then you go and sell it and you market it. And then you go back to whether or not you're still passionate about it. Because I remember when we did our first kids business fair, we had a young girl, she's 16 now, she's about 11 at the time. She said, I want to do a cakes and cookies business, right? So, you know, she came up with this brilliant brand, and she did this design. We took her through the whole process. And then at the end of the fair, she sold out, made all this money. And I said, how did you find it? She said, it was good, but I didn't realize how hard it was to bake 100 cookies.
Yeah. The actual
reality of business.
Reality, right? She said, I don't want to see another cake or cookie in my life.
So she's gone to fashion.
Yeah, she changed up, but do something else now, right?
Yeah.
But then, you know, and some kids will go through that process, and they realize, so, you know, another young entrepreneur who my wife always talks about, whenever she started a business, she would always just be interested in designing the logo. So she would come up with a business idea, and she'd be just stuck on designing the logo. So one of the sessions, my wife just told her, look, just draw, just create, just for this session, she said to the mum. And what she realized is that the child is an artist. That's what she realized. She has a talent in art. And this child went on to develop a coloring book for adults to help them stay calm, because she realized that coloring can help mental health. And she created this coloring book. It's called Adventureville. It was all hand drawn, and she sold hundreds of these. She's been featured all across the media. She's had her artwork featured in the Shard. She's won awards, and it all came from, you know, this one idea. Just the fact that as an artist, you can productize that. You know, she sold tote bags. She sold hundreds of Christmas cards and all sorts of things, right? So going through that process, it's us looking at and being mindful of where's this child going? You know, so we're there kind of guiding them, right? And the idea of it is that it doesn't matter what they do, but if they go through that process is the process you will go through in any business. So if you start doing art and you go on to hair, or you go on to develop a rocket ship or whatever it is, it's the same process that you've got to go through. And even if you then don't want to run a business, but you want to go and work in a business, you now understand how a business works. So you can contribute as an entrepreneur more effectively to that business, right? So it essentially makes you a lot more employable, which we know the job market for young people is extremely competitive. Even just last week, the Department for Work and Pensions are under scrutiny because they couldn't explain why 41% of young Black people are out of work, which is 20% more than their white peers. It's doubled over the pandemic, right? So we know that Black kids are finding it hard to get work. And for me, if you can't find the job you love, you should be able to create the job you love.
Create it yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're actually helping in that. So we applaud you and the work that you do so far. All right.
Thank you.
Because I'm going to get to the plaudits later.
I think we can get to the plaudits later, but I think one thing is, I mean, you showed us the logo. Well, how did that come about? Yeah, and why? And how does it tie into your marketing?
Yeah, so
as you speak, I'm going to show everyone. So
so the logo, so the logo is actually a U. It's a U for ultra, and the word ultra comes from the Latin word to go beyond. So it really means beyond education, meaning, you know, beyond traditional education, beyond what you think you're capable of. And really, when I was before I started the company, I was you know, really amazed at the way in which people viewed entrepreneurs. People, you know, the general public view successful entrepreneurs almost as if they have some special skills or superpowers, right? And, you know, and I believe everyone's got superpowers. You've just got to tap into it. And I believe all entrepreneurs have done, and creatives and innovators and people who just perform really well, they've tapped into their superpower. So I, you know, gave the brief to my brother-in-law, who was the designer of this, and said, look, I want a logo. It's got to be around ultra, and it's got to be, you know, kind of superhero-esque. And this is what he came back with. And people loved it. You know, kids loved it. They really, you know, were kind of drawn to it. And the other thing as well was entrepreneurial education for young people, up until we came along, as far as I'm concerned, was really dry. It was really boring. It was really white and middle class. And it didn't speak to us culturally. it, you know, it wasn't exciting. It didn't have any vibrancy to it. And that's not what entrepreneurship is. You know, I wanted entrepreneurship to be representative of the people that young people would see in and around them. And it needed to be new. It needed to be fresh.
And also it was about the joys of possibility, because business is about the joys of possibility. That's why you started. Yeah. So you have actually tapped into that and working with those young people. You know, I am really blessed to know that someone like you is out there doing what you do. So my question to you is, how far are you going to take it?
So within the next 5 years, our ambition is to become a national organization, and within 10 years to be global.
Okay. Now, on that level, in terms of global, how are you managing, or how are you working towards that direction? And are you kind of collaborating with different people or organizations to take you to that next level?
Sure. Great question, Hugh. So we'll do it in a couple of ways. We're going to adopt a franchise model at some point soon. That we've been working on it for a while now, and we've tested it out in a few places. Some have worked, some haven't. But we're going to expand our physical footprint with a franchise model. We'll also develop partnerships with other educational institutions, youth organizations, and other bodies. And then we're going to go very, very digital. So we're going to have, you know, a youth entrepreneurship platform, a bit like a Udemy or a Khan Academy, where, you know, anyone anywhere in the world can log on. And if you're, you know, 6 or you're 16, or you want to learn about profit and loss, or you want to learn about how to become, you know, a YouTuber, or to create mobile apps and start a business, you'll be able to have the information to, you know, to do that.
Oh, that is fabulous. I mean, I hope that some of the adults can take on board some of the mechanisms for learning how to do YouTube. Because I think what you are doing, it's so rare that I've got to ask you, do you find it difficult to find that concept with the young people to help them to move forward? Yeah, because young people have different ideas and concepts as to what they want to do. How are you able to manage that? How are you able to work with them for that?
You know what? In my experience, and our facilitators will tell you this, that we are behind the expectation and aspiration of young people. Young people want to do this. Young people, they're entrepreneurial from the time they're in primary school. It's adults who are disabling them. It's adults who are behind the curve. It's adults that don't have the expectation. It's adults that don't believe that this is possible for young people and for children. It's adults who are layering all of these limiting ideas on kids. For kids, having a business or a business idea is not a stretch. It's not something that they don't believe is possible, that they can't do. The trouble that young people have is support, guidance, encouragement, and mentorship. That's the problem that they have, because as young people, when they start and they find difficulties, and, you know, sometimes it knocks their confidence, and, you know, they can't get any help, or, you know, we've even had teachers, you know, diminish the ideas of primary school kids and just tell them you should go and do something else, or who would buy that, or sniggering and laughing. I mean, really appalling stuff. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I think school teachers are doing the most amazing job in the world, but, you know, there are a small minority of school teachers who are really doing young people a disservice because they just don't believe in them, especially, you know, young kids, black kids from low income backgrounds. They just don't believe that they can make it, that they can do it. And to the end, to another degree, last year a teacher approached me and asked me to mentor a student of hers because he was excluded from school because he was coming in, and not even in the school, but at the school gates, he was selling Lucozades and, you know, and Snickers bars, and, you know, he was making about 50 quid a week doing this, but he literally got excluded from school for doing it.
Yes, and you see, that's I've experienced that, and the important thing was to actually show that young person about entrepreneurship and support that person, find somewhere else. And this is where you come in, that there are many of these young people out there. And when I was at school, I remember the teacher telling me, pigeonholing me to do woodwork and artwork and that kind of thing. They did not want me to be, to do the social work. Yeah, because that wasn't meant for us.
I think, but that is, unfortunately, what does happen at the moment in schools. You're already pigeonholed to either be in the bank, in the workshop, or what I mean,
working for someone else
or somebody else. You're not, the whole system is not geared towards you being entrepreneurial. I think they're kind of realizing that now, but it is going to take some time. But my question to you, Julian, is obviously you're in schools now. How were you able to break into that field of the school environment? Were you invited into schools, or did you have to sort of do a pitch really to say, listen, what I have here can help your children?
So this is where, I have to give teachers a lot of credit, because the first time we got into schools, it's because a school teacher emailed me and asked me if we would come in. I had no intention of going into schools, if I'm honest, because I just didn't think that they'd be receptive. The business model was to do clubs and to work with parents. That was the model. I remember the day I got an email from a school and they said, they've seen what we do online. Can we come in and do a workshop in the school? And that's when I realized that there was an appetite. So school, whenever I sit in front of a school teacher or a head or whatever, they're all up for it. That's not the challenge. The challenge isn't the teacher in the school. The challenge is the national curriculum and Ofsted, because teachers aren't going to get a pat on the back from Ofsted for teaching kids entrepreneurship. They're not. And schools are rated by Ofsted. So, they've got to meet their requirements there. But teachers also know that the curriculum falls short of preparing children for the world. They know that. You ask any teacher, they'll tell you that. They'll tell you that the curriculum is outdated. They'll tell you that it's full of holes. So what they do is they'll do enrichment. They'll do extracurricular stuff, right? But all of that then depends on the capacity of the teacher, the capacity of the school, and whether or not parents can afford to pay for it. It's not it takes a lot of work for teachers to be able to provide learning and skills development outside of the curriculum. It's a lot of work. And for those who do it, I absolutely, applaud you. We've worked with over 50 schools. So, that's, hundreds of teachers, right? So I know that they want to do it. They are constrained, though, by the requirements of the national curriculum.
Okay, so
what I would ask you within that, and the difficulties that you find within schools and the limitations for your children, do you have programs available for children that have special needs at all? Have you developed them?
Yeah, it's a great question. It just so happens that so I remember when I was on a judging panel some years back with Duncan Bannatyne, one of the Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
And we got talking afterwards, and he was publishing a book, and he was asking me for some advice on his book, because I'd published some books, and we got into the discussion about him publishing a book even though he was dyslexic. He then said that he believes that a number of the other dragons have special or learning difficulties.
Right.
But he thinks that because people with dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculus, because they see the world differently, that's what enables them to see opportunities that other people wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
If you, for those who have autism, software engineers, the best software engineers are seen as being someone on the autistic spectrum because you require a high degree of focus. I remember there was a parent who came to a workshop in 2018. She came with her two, kind of younger teen. It was a boy and a girl. And she was really concerned. She said, look, they've got learning difficulties, I hope they'll be okay, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember taking them, and they were perfectly fine in the environment that we were in. You know, we always maintain a kind of 1 to 5 teacher-student ratio, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, she didn't think that because it was a learning environment that they'd get any value out of it. But they were brilliant. They were open, they were communicative, they were sharing ideas, they were challenging, they were passionate, they were just brilliant, right? And what it made me realize is that it's about, you know, we now know that special educational needs is really about neurodiversity. It's just about, it's not that they are slow, it's that they just process information differently.
In a different way.
In a different way.
Learning difficulties, I suppose, is a word, you know, is a term, you know, that is fast that's being used, because what we're finding is children with autism or whatever scale on the spectrum they just communicate, and as you say, learn in a different way. So the environment that you have within your, you know, your workshops and schools for these children, they automatically, when they come into them, you're already presenting them with a learning, creative, you know, environment which is different, and that is where they excel. So what I would say to you is, would you then perhaps approach, you know, autistic schools, because we have many children that would absolutely benefit from, you know, what you offer with your business.
Absolutely. You know, with all things, as you can imagine, I get 10 good ideas thrown at me every day.
Yeah.
And if I tell the team we're doing another one, they'll just, you know, all jump on me. So I've got to be careful. But the answer is yes. And in practical steps, if somebody could just introduce us so we can have a conversation with a school that looks after students with you know, who learn differently, we would absolutely jump at the chance to do that. You know, we've got a number of parents whose kids have been in our programs, and they have told us that our programs have changed the way their children view education, and it's developed them in ways that traditional school hasn't. So we know that entrepreneurship just so happens to be a really conducive learning vehicle for children who are neurodiverse. And every other entrepreneur that I speak to will, you know, will either know or have an inkling that they have some kind of, you know, special educational need. And I think, you know, the strange thing about it is that in the world of business and entrepreneurship, thinking differently is a superpower, but in school it's a disability. And it's just completely the wrong way around. And so, you know, I want kids who are you know, given that label, to know that that's your superpower. The fact that you think differently and that you learn differently to other kids, that's your superpower. That's the thing you need to focus on, because that's the thing that will differentiate you from the other 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah, indeed.
Can I take you to another point, which is that you're standing in front of the Prime Minister and you have an opportunity to ask him to support entrepreneurship. What would you say to the Prime Minister?
Really simple. It's really simple. I would say to him that the UK economy is built on small business. I would also tell him that 9 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 3 years, and that I believe that's because entrepreneurship isn't taught early enough in schools. It's a very simple argument.
That's it. Then you see, because that is the link. Because as far as I could see, no matter where we're going right now, that entrepreneurship is not about, you know, the 50-year-old who has been told, you know, you're no longer, you know, required, you're surplus to requirement, so going to start your own business. It's about the young person who has got ideas and wants to help to do something for themselves, create a better economy for everyone. Because one young person creating a business could be employing 1,000 people, but it's about supporting that person to make that next move. So I want to ask you now the accolades that you have been given.
I was going to get there.
Okay, then you.
No, you go.
It's yours. After you. After you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Julian, obviously we want to get to this bit, but over the years that you have built and grown the franchise, the accolades that you have received, with acknowledgement of all the great work that you've done. Tell me, a which one do you hold dear, and number two, where do you think, how has that helped your business with the children?
Yeah, so I know sometimes people say this a lot, but it is true that the accolades aren't important to me, not at all. The only reason we go for the accolades is because it will help us to get more resources and opportunities for the kids that we work with. It's the only reason. Right. I mean, there's no, it's a nice pat on the back. It's a nice recommendation, but if I never had any of them, I'd still be doing what I'm doing. It's not important. It's not important to me, but it is important to the business. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. Because I understand that it's a mechanism for promotion and all the rest of it, and credibility and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. What I would say though is the accolades that our kids have received are probably more important to me. Those are the accolades that I'm, more proud of. Yeah. I was more proud.
An example of one or two.
Yeah. So my daughter won Entrepreneur of the Year at the Black Youth Achievement Awards a number of years back. One of our kids two of our kids have been featured in Forbes. One of our kids won. I can't even remember. There's so many, but our kids have won a Proud and Gifted Award. Another kid won a Special Achievement Award in their school. Another young person I'm working with today just won, their first business grant at 20 years old. There's so many each week. We get good news from parents and and teachers just sharing what their kids have achieved. But I suppose even then, what I'm more impressed by is when a child presents their product. To me, that's an accolade, right? To me, that to me is special. It's tangible. It's it's something that, to take an idea and to turn it into something material, not many people can do that. Mm-hmm. Most people will have ideas and they'll never see the light of day. So, when you say, the thing that makes me most proud is, today on our WhatsApp group, there was a girl, she must have been maybe 8 years old. She spent 5 minutes on this video talking about the natural deodorant that she's just developed, right? And that she's selling. And to me, that's what when I see that, I'm proud, right? That's more important to me than an award or, a media thing or, all of those things. Those are nice, but the crux of it, the important bit is, can you take that idea and turn it into something tangible? Yes. That's the bit that makes me proud, because without that, there's nothing. There is no business. There's no accolades. There's no ultra. Yeah. But kids doing that, every time I see that, it makes me want to keep going.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Now, the next question would be, do you have award ceremony for the young people? And when is your next one? And how can people support you in terms of those areas of the work that you do, even raising funds or whatever?
Yeah, sure. So we had our first Kids Business Awards 2018 at PwC in London Bridge. We haven't had one since, mainly because of the pandemic and various things, but we are going to have another kind of celebration of our kids in April at Wembley Stadium. We'll be running our 8th Kids Business Fair there in the Bobby Moore Suite. We hope to have about 50 kid entrepreneurs there, and we'll be celebrating a lot of their successes and handing out, awards and certificates and things like that. So we are, really looking forward to that. In terms of how people can can help us? And it's a question I get all the time. It's really easy. If you know a parent, a teacher, a social worker, someone who works for a council, someone who works for a youth organization, someone who works with children who are hard to reach, refer them, recommend us. Let's have a conversation with them, because, you know, we, as much as we're a social enterprise and we access grants, the fact is we work with a lot of organizations, and that's our bread and butter. Is working with schools, is working with councils, is working with housing associations. That's what we do, and in doing so, we can help to benefit the community. So if anybody has anyone like that in their networks, just, you know, make contact with us. We're open on any social media platform, and then we'll just try and hook up a meeting and, you know, tell them how we can help.
Okay. So do you have a number that people can refer to?
Yeah, I've got it here. I was going to share all of that information later. I hope I've got this all correct here.
Perfect. That's it. Yep.
Yeah. 0800 211
8133.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I've been sharing all the information up there, and obviously we will put that all of that in
the comments as well, so that people can actually access it.
Perfect.
Now, I think that we need to now talk about you.
Yes.
Oh boy.
The man
behind it all. Now, I know I said about your boss, and I'm sure your boss wants to hear about this. So what were the good things that you learned at school, and what were the not so good that you learned at school? And how does that help you to do what you're doing today? Or has it?
The good thing I learned at school was that you can take something which is really difficult, and if you break it down into bite-sized chunks, it becomes manageable. It's no longer, you know, impossible, right? And that's important, because if you're starting a new, whether it doesn't even matter about starting a new business, you could just have a task to do, and that task seems impossible. But if you know, there's a psychology around procrastination, which says that if you, let's say there's a book you've got to read, and, you know, you're just looking at this book and it's a really big book. If you read one word of that book, psychologically, it takes away the fear around, you know, the job ahead of you, right? That, you know, they say that about fitness. If you've got to go out running, just walk, just take 10 steps down the road, right? Put on your stuff, take 10 steps down the road and come back. And then tomorrow take 20, right? So I think, you know, what my education taught me, and actually, when I say that, what I really mean is I was homeschooled for the first 2 years of my life. So my mother homeschooled me. So when I did eventually go into school, I was ahead of the class, and I remained ahead until I got to secondary school, until the middle of secondary school. But the stuff that I used to do with my mum really made me believe that no matter how big something was, that I could approach it. It didn't matter how big it was. It doesn't matter what it is. It taught me that if I just take a little chunk out of it, it'll become easier.
So so you see, a lot of what you're saying there, I can see how you transfer that to those young people to relieve their anxiety about doing what their dream, making their dream become a reality. So that's why I asked you about the good that you've learned. And now what about some of the things that haven't been so good? What have you learned from those? Because those are also important learning tools.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, in the day and time we live in, I've learned being a black man is a challenge in this country. Okay. And that there are, you know, there are bias. There's obvious bias that makes it more difficult, and that a lot of black men and women who start in business, you know, will face bias, and it'll sometimes become so hard they'll just stop. Which is the reason why I always say that you've got to do something that you really love, because if you really love it, nothing will stop you. You know, it'll still be hard. It'll still take however long it takes, but at least you won't stop. There's a saying in the kind of startup tech world that businesses don't fail, people give up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, businesses don't fail, people give up. And the reason why people give up generally is because they're no longer passionate about that business. And if you're not passionate about it, you should stop. But you know, a lot of people start businesses that they're only doing to make money. They're not doing it because they're genuinely passionate about it, right? So, you know, I have a philosophy that if you are, it doesn't matter what the business is, if you're passionate about it, you will be able to make money from it, right?
Yes.
There are some business models which are just more predisposed to making more money than others, but you can still make, you know, enough money to live and to, you know, enjoy life based on anything you want to do. Because, I mean, you know, I had a career in the city. I know extremely successful people who were very depressed. We all know of, you know, city folk who will commit suicide and be at the highest points of depression. So, you know, it's not really about money. So, you know, when we kind of speak to our young entrepreneurs, we say to them that that happiness is the ultimate form of success. It's not money, it's happiness. The reason that links to business and employment is because you'll spend the majority of your life working. So if you work doing something you hate, then you're less likely to be happy. If you work doing something you love, you're more likely to be happy, right? You know, it's one of the elements. You know, again, being an entrepreneur is about, you know, doing what you love, maintaining your physical and mental health, and forming great relationships with friends and family, right? Because you need all of those things to live a holistic life, right? And entrepreneurs bleed into that. You know, they do understand all of that. That it isn't just about making that, you know, being, you know, financially successful and then you've got no friends, no family, no health. What's the point then, right? But that was the narrative of the previous generation of entrepreneurs. It was just make $1 million. Doesn't matter if you lose all your friends. Doesn't matter. It matters. Right. It matters a lot. Right.
Yes.
So now it's just about finding that balance by saying, look, you know, make enough money, but also, you know, generate enough meaningful relationships. There was a study done by Harvard which tracked the a happiness index of sorts of people over, I think it was about 100 years, right? And it was tracking the life of, it was a couple of hundred men and women to determine, you know, towards the end of life, what would make them happiest. And, you know, when they got towards the end of the experiment and they asked people, you know, what's really made you happy in your life? People didn't say money, careers, holidays. It wasn't that. They said what makes them really happy was meaningful relationships with friends and family. Deep, meaningful relationships, deep connections with people is the thing that has made them really happy. And for me, you know, you can't do that if you're, you know, struggling for money in a low-end job, or you hate your boss, or you hate your workplace. All of that kind of bleeds into everything else in life, right? So we're just here trying to solve one problem, right? Most people don't like their jobs. Let's try and change that, because you're going to spend a lot of time at work. And if we can change that, then hopefully there's other organizations that can change the rest.
Well, you know what? That is just a fabulous tick for everything there. May I ask you one other question that I found that was kind of missing, that maybe I missed out on? Peer-to-peer education and support. How does that transfer into what you are doing? Do you add that into the learning for the young people?
Yeah, absolutely. So the alumni of our entrepreneurial network will often go into schools and workshops and share their story and, you know, mentor other young people. We've had sessions where we've had 12 and 13-year-olds talk to sixth formers, so 17 and 18-year-olds about business.
Oh,
yeah, that's amazing.
Wow.
That is brilliant.
And that, you know, we know that's never been done before, but that kind of thing, it's a light bulb moment for the sixth formers, and it builds the confidence in the younger ones. So that's a really important part of our process, is that peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I suppose we didn't say at the beginning, but so you, the work that you do are with children aged between 7 and 18, isn't it?
That's
Or
right.
has that changed? Yeah, 7 to 18 years of age. So that's just the cycle really that you are showing there, which is showing the older children, the responsibility of finding your way, doing, creating something and going forward with it, as well as showing your younger peers, the way to go. And that would instill, a sense of pride
Value.
and value
Absolutely.
to them, the younger ones as well. So, again, I'm going to
We,
commend
we
you
just
on that,
can't commend you enough, to be
in the
honest.
work that you do. I think you
Us,
should get a knighthood.
you should, but you know what? The
You
amount of
should
work
get
that
a
this man's
knighthood.
doing, I don't think he'll be able to collect it.
But even
But
if you
but
do
you know
get a
what?
knighthood,
I mean, it's important for me to say that I don't do this on my own. I've got an incredible
No.
team of people
Yeah.
that was
behind
going to
me.
be my next question.
Yeah.
Your incredible team. So, in terms of that, how
How's the team?
what is the team
What's the team about?
make up in terms of your teachers, students,
Yeah,
that kind of?
yeah. So I've got an advisory board of 3 or 4 really, really smart people who advise me and keep me on track. I'm the founder and chief exec. We've got the head teacher, who's my wife, who's delivered and helped me to start the company. We've got a chief operating officer. We've got a project management office. We've got another 2 project managers. We've got a family coach. We've got a marketing expert. We've got an administrator, bookkeeper, accountant. We've got about 5 interns, and then we've got a pool of about 6 facilitators.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Wow. That's
Very
very impressive. And do you aim to be growing even further? You said about worldwide, so I was going to ask you prior to that, before you even said that, do you have plans for the Caribbean? And would you be looking at getting Caribbean leaders to help with,
with the
African
crossover.
Caribbean leaders
Yeah.
to help with the crossover from their
Yeah.
own diaspora?
Yeah,
Again, not
absolutely.
putting all these ideas into your head now to make your stuff go no more. But obviously, I suppose that would be the area that you'd want to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking. I'm in conversation with a gentleman in a Caribbean island, a big one, about starting Ultra there. I'm in conversation with another individual who's just started a school in Ghana to launch Ultra there. So there's a lot of conversations happening.
Yes, that's amazing. Good.
So one day will you be on the stage with Oprah talking about the joint work? I hope you would be.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, having said that, I mean, obviously in the chat there's been some questions. I think everyone, we're just listening to Julian Hall, who we've been speaking to for the last hour coming up for, who does amazing work with his company, his enterprise, Ultra Education, which is national at the moment. It's national presently.
We're really London based. We've worked around the country, but we're really London based at the moment.
Yeah. So one of our lovely people is like, do you work with the Black Child Agenda?
Yeah, Cheryl Phoenix, that's my sister. We've we always work together, share referrals and talk a lot. So yeah, we do.
Lovely. Okay. And then somebody just mentioned a comment here. I was homeschooling my 5 and 6-year-old, and I felt I reckon my children were more with myself than in the school environment. I mean, I think quite a lot of parents have found that over the lockdown that they can do a little bit more.
Well, you know what? One of the things is it's amazing how our young people, when they're with their parents, that when they're first going into school, they are so ahead of the game, and then they get into the school and you find them just their level just down because the teachers need to equate everything down to the point.
That's right. An average
at the same time. Yeah, and it's soul destroying because you can see the wisdom just seeping out to a point where they're going ABC when they were doing their 12 times table. Yeah. So, I think what you're doing there, I just don't know how to commend you, because this is so
Yeah,
important
it's
and vital. And if there's anything that we at Black Business can do, Black Business Recommendation can do, we would be happy to help you. And we hope that you continue what you're doing, and support is there from
Yeah,
us. Whatever you need,
yeah.
whatever we can
You
do,
need.
we will do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we see from on your website as well, and I have shared it up here already. That you ask for donations as well. So obviously, if anybody, if you want to help, ultra education, be able to, continue to grow the resources that they need to, you know, build this amazing facility for our children. Okay, what better place to put a little bit of, to donate than to this fantastic enterprise.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. And Julian, before he answers the final question as such, for me, uh, working in education, it is always a joy, and I work in a specialist school for children with autism, and it is always an amazement to me to see um, how much they blossom after coming away from the rigors of just the normal routine education and curriculum.
Classroom.
As soon as
Mm.
they come and they get used to the environment, the teachers, and they see how they learn, it's just like they have just taken off a whole
A
a
whole layer.
stone, a whole layer off of them, and you just see that joy, the learning. And I believe that what you do at Ultra Education is exactly that. You are releasing children,
Mm.
okay, to be
Their
who
better
they're
selves.
better, yeah, the better side of
Mm.
themselves.
Mm.
And you're also at the tip of the iceberg of creating a better society, honestly,
Thank you.
and we thank you and salute you for that.
Well, thank you, guys. It's been an honor to be sharing your platform with you. So, thank you very much for allowing me to use your time this evening to amplify the work and the successes of our young people.
Well, you know something, Julian, that we will be sharing this with many of our affiliates. So it's not just about Black Business Recommendation.
Yes.
We'll be sharing it with a number of our affiliates to make sure that this is actually known and seen, and everyone to share it.
Yeah.
So, we hope to open up that door wide open. Yeah. So
Thank you.
thank you very much for this evening. Yeah. So before we go,
Final
I'm going to
question.
ask you the one question. Legacy. What would Julian want to see if Julian was looking up from above to see what we're doing down here? What would Julian want to see as part of your legacy?
Yeah. So at the moment, if a child sets up a business, it's seen as something which is out of the ordinary. I want to normalize it. That's what I want. I want my legacy to be in 10 years from now, 15 years from now. In the same way, if you heard a child was playing football in a football team, if they're learning piano or horse riding or guitar, people would, they would applaud that, but you wouldn't see that as out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
I want the same for kids entrepreneurship and kids in business. I want it to be normalized. I want kids to feel like it's just another thing that they're able to do, just like they can play piano or do gymnastics or go and play football, that they can set up a business as well. Because I honestly believe that it will not only help them as individuals, whether it's commercially or personally. Every entrepreneur will tell you that the personal development journey in entrepreneurship is massive. If they're successful, they'll be able to employ others. They can have an impact on their community, and ultimately, if people are happier doing the work that they do, then as Lorraine said, I do believe that we'll have a better society because of it. And that's really what I'd like my legacy to be.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well
Amazing.
done, because that is exactly, wow. I'm stumped. Really and truly, I'm speechless.
I don't think we've been like that for a little while now.
We haven't been speechless for quite a while. So you've done it to
No,
us.
thank you
Well
very
done,
much.
Julian. You've represented and you've shown people what is available when you put your mind to it. And, you know, the way that you're doing things, I think we're just there. Can only say we are there to support you.
Thank you so much.
The gemstones that we have, in our diaspora, the gemstones, and that's what we want to do. We want to shine a light on all of you because we want everybody to know, you know, who you are, all right, and how fabulous and what a credit to society, you know, that you are to everyone. So thank you very much, Julian.
Thank you so much.
Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll be sharing.
And we'll be
all
sharing
your
on
details with
BBR
everybody.
so that everybody knows what you're doing whenever. Yeah. So you
Thank
take
you.
care.
All right.
Thank you very
Good night.
much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Blessed
Thank you very
evening.
much.
Thank you.
So
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, ladies and
Wow.
gentlemen, that was Julian Hall.
yeah.
And you know what? It's funny that we're talking about young people and enterprise, but you know what? The important thing is what Julian teaches young people is what adults are learning.
Yeah.
So there's no difference. So when you see that there are young people who are sitting next to you with ideas, stop, turn the TV off and take a listen.
Concentrate,
Take a
listen to
listen.
them. Yeah.
And those young people can actually see things in a different way. So pay attention. That's all we can say for today. And we will see you next Monday when we have Victoria King of, what was that? What's the group called? Sorry, I apologize. It's Victoria King, and it is at Start Now. And this is a company that's teaching young people and teaching adults about business. So we'll be seeing you next Monday, the 20th of September at 8 o'clock, as per usual. Good night.
Take care. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week. Bye-bye now.